there were things that happened where it felt like that was prevented and like he didn't like who I was. And at the same time, I didn't cultivate that when I was a kid. I was constantly monitoring how much I showed up, how loud I was. Attribution is so incredibly important when it comes to this part of knowing the truth, knowing ourselves, doing the work to ask why. And like, it's like tracing the yellow brick road down to the Genesis story of what was that experience? What happened in the past? And how does that show up in the present?
Hello and welcome to Delusional. I'm your host, Michelle Coyle. I am here with my friend Christene Marie. Christene, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christene Marie, and after my husband left, I found myself.
I'm so excited to dig into this story. So you're still young, at least from my perspective. You're still young. You've been through a lot in your life. So do you want to just dive into that? What was that rock bottom moment? Because you were surprised when he told you he was leaving, right?
It was, yeah, I actually did not think it would happen until I got the email from the court saying it's approved. Like, I just thought that something would happen to disrupt it. Like, they'd be like, we lost your divorce papers. Like, just something. Like, I mean, I was delusional. So I just really, and I wasn't pretending. Like, I knew what I was doing and I knew, what was going on. But like, I just, given how I was raised to think about marriage and given my view of God at the time, I thought there's no way that this is going to happen. So it was just, I just had no category for, after all of the work that I put into this thing, how much I loved him, how well I loved him. He even said, we have the best marriage out of everyone I know. I was like, there's no way. And so, yes.
Can't be happening right now.
I know.
My impression of you, and tell me wrong, but you just said the way you were raised, is that you were raised in a pretty like conservative Christian kind of upbringing. Did you get married super young?
Super young, 20 years old. I was a month after I turned 20, I got married.
So I have a son that's turning 20 this month. So that's just, you just said that and I was like, ooh, that's really
would not advise, would not recommend. Oh my gosh. I know. And that's how it was, especially in kind of the conservative Christian upbringing. It was like, you don't sleep together before you get married. So get married really young. And marriage was the conduit to real intimacy and to really knowing someone. And that's the dangerous part, is that you don't know who they are. And given the age, you don't know who you are. And so it's kind of like flint and stone, it's like just dangerous what you're putting together by way of, not that I'm not saying sex is the only way, but the age component, the lack of emotional intelligence with which we were raised to have not just the tools, but even the discussions, knowing how to do conflict, knowing how to do relationships. So much of relationships is predicated in that right hemisphere of the brain, which is where the EQ and the really the emotional side lies. And relationships are based there. If you go to your kid who's having a tantrum or crying or upset and you're trying to logically reason with them, it's not going to go well for your child or you. Or if you try to do that same approach with your partner, we've all tried to do that and we all know what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. So was he raised in the same way? Was he also super young, or like, did you guys not date for very long? Or like, tell us how the marriage happened, and then how long were you married, and then what happened?
Yeah. So I was 17 years old when I met him at a conference in Florida. I don't remember really meeting him well, but then I went back the next year and he was there. And in my mind, we had a meet cute. For those of you who have seen The Holiday, they like define the meet cute, which is the moment where a man and a woman have this cute meeting in a movie and it's like planned and adorable. So the way we met, and kind of when I really started noticing him, was like we woke up from playing a game. It was one of those games where you like close your eyes and people are trying to kill each other and you have the detective. And so it's very like late high school type of games you're playing. And so we were all playing this game, and then we woke up and he and I both like reached and touched hands for the snack in the middle. And I was like, what a meet cute. And so that was kind of my moment of like, let's see if I can actually fabricate some romance here. And I did. And we ended up, both of us hanging out with our families that summer. And then we wrote, my dad actually said, if you guys just start to get to know each other by way of texting, it's going to completely take you out of the present moment. He was at a military school. I was working at the time with youth and very involved in their lives. And so my dad was like, to slow things down, why don't you all write letters? Which was like, and so because it was a very traditional environment, my dad did have a say and we listened. Like my dad wasn't being a nasty controlling person. It was just, this is my advice. But little did he know it was actually very romantic to be getting letters and seeing the handwriting. And it was like all in this girlish fantasy that I had. So it's very romantic. We wrote letters for 3 months. He came back in November. And we had just like this wonderful little whirlwind when he asked me to be his girlfriend. 5 months later, he proposed. And 5 months after that, we got married.
Oh, wow.
It
So
was
it's like less than a
very
year
fast.
total. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It was very, very, very fast. And so it was nearly right away. I remember 2 weeks in being married and being like, something's changed. Like, it doesn't really feel like he likes me as much anymore. And well, actually, I'll get to that in a moment, but 2 weeks in, it felt like something has altered here and I don't know what it is. And so for the next year, it was challenging. Like, I was actually like, why did I get married? Like, this is miserable. And nobody that I was close to was married because everyone else was a child like me. And then my sister, she was 5 years older, but she had just the most idyllic marriage. Like, she married her her high school sweetheart. Like, it was so beautiful, the relationship that they had. And so I was like, oh, we're going to model that. Like, I'm going to make this marriage beautiful and really kind of trying to make it be something that it wasn't. But a year later, right after our 1 year anniversary, my sister's husband was killed by a drunk driver, and she had a 3-week-old baby girl at the time. And so my husband comes up to me and says, why don't we have them live with us? And I was like, 1, you're a hero. And 2, maybe this is why we got married, is so that we could like take care of my sister and her baby girl. So my sister and my niece, Alyssa Rose, they moved from Texas and then they lived with us for about 2 years. And God bless my former husband, because man, within, a year of being married, he gets a sister wife effectively and a little kid, and so his whole world was turned upside down in addition to ours. And so the grief that I was having around this marriage that was not at all what I anticipated, and the pain there ended up kind of switching to grieving my brother-in-law and taking care of my sister. And then someone in his family was starting to struggle with addiction. So all of our energy started being focused outward, which actually kind of refocused us so those next couple of years, like, it was hard. It was hard for sure. Like, we would close the bedroom door and it was hard back there. But then in front of the world, we were actually a really good team. Like, we cared for people well and loved people well. And we had a similar energy that we brought into a room. And we weren't really alone hardly ever. So those behind the scene conversations were rare, and the struggles there. So when my sister moved out, that's when it all kind of crumbled. And at year 5, I was like, okay, I have done everything I can possibly think of to make you love me. What do you need? What do we do? And he said, I've been mad at God that I married you. Oh. And I was like, oh, and I actually have this journal entry in my book. I was just like, oh, okay, at least I now know. Like, I don't even feel that sad. Like, I've known this whole time. But what ended up happening was that he tried for a little bit. And then at the end of, kind of that next year, he said he wasn't sure if he wanted to stay. And then I really fought. Like, people were advising me to be his friend, not his wife. So like, be the friend, shut down your emotions, just draw him out and care for him and love him. And so I really was trying to do that. And so we got to know him and in a really beautiful way. I think that's really where I started first kind of understanding emotional intelligence. He said he wasn't sure if he wanted to stay married. 3 months before that, I had started my business. And I was just starting to like really kind of adopt an entrepreneurial hat and spirit. So then, 3 months after that, he says he's not sure if he wants to stay. And that continues for about 2 years until he finally actually moved out. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, Michelle, what was the catalyst for him actually moving out was me finally putting my foot in the sand and saying something needs to change. Like, what we have is not healthy. And I want an emotionally healthy marriage. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to do that. But that was actually the thing that broke us, was me saying I want something to change. And so this whole question, I think so many times people are like, you get what you want. And so I did actually want and need that marriage to die. But that marriage, not us, but like the way our marriage had existed. And so what's crazy, and when I look back, I'm like, I actually caused it, which blows my mind because I loved him so much and wanted it to work. But I knew that that had to stop. Our marriage was predicated on emotional unhealth. So if we ever want to change the foundation, both people have to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, Christine, but the people that are listen all the time know I've been divorced twice. I'm the queen
Mm,
of I'm the
yes.
divorce queen, not quite Elizabeth Taylor level, but a little bit of experience with all things divorce. I did not come from the background that you came from.
mm,
You and the background that you guys had come from, what did it mean to get divorced?
mm. I mean, I felt like, have you ever read Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel
Mhm.
Hawthorne? In the Scarlet Letter, it's about this woman. She's a Puritan. She gets caught, having adultery, having an affair, and she gets this Scarlet Letter A sewn on her lapel. And from there on out, she is forever scorned and avoided and judged. And that is how I felt. I felt like I had a D on my chest, because just like how when I was young, no one was married. When I was 28 and divorced, no one else was divorced from that environment. And I actually hadn't really stayed in the same environment. We had both kind of left, I guess. In fact, when my husband left, he said, I don't love you. I don't love God. I don't love your family.
Okay,
Those
so
were
he
his
was
three reasons.
divorcing everything.
He was divorcing everything. He actually, I think it's okay to say this, I actually really aim to speak well of him, especially
Sure.
because what a hero to invite my sister and her baby
Yeah.
girl in. He actually messaged me a year later and he was like, I'm sorry I didn't quit my job before I quit us. And not to use that language specifically, but I appreciated that, yeah, that would have, and I actually had that thought. I actually had that thought before everything ended officially, like, well, why don't you try changing your job? Because I think his job actually had a really big impact on us. And so why wouldn't you try to change that first? But I had that thought and I knew, I was like, I need to stop controlling the narrative. I'd been controlling it for this whole time, trying to make him love me, trying to be good enough, trying to change, trying to be the person that would finally make him love me. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? If you're willing to give up on us without even thinking of giving up on your job first, then so be it. And I still didn't think it would happen. Like, I really
You were
thought that
still in
he would have a hard
denial
time.
until the court said you're divorced. You went, oh shit, I guess.
Yeah, I really, really thought that he would come around. I just really did. Like, because the whole time he would send me articles of like couples who got divorced but then got back together. And like, he was like, just like, give me a few more months. Like, let me figure this out. And there was a lot of hopeful signals he gave along the way. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
very,
I
very
resonate.
devastating.
And I like you. I try really hard not to say anything ill about both of my ex-husbands who are both of my baby daddies. It's so funny to
Yes.
that, but
Yeah.
I have my two sons from their different dads from both marriages. And because I have kids with these guys, I really try.
Yeah.
And just
I
because I like
really
to be a good
respect that.
person. Yeah, and I do resonate with what it feels like to be saying, "Hey, I need something to be different," and kind of waiting for the other
Yeah.
person to meet you halfway, and then just like that never happening, and you having to be like, "I guess I gotta
Yes.
go then," because I guess that you're not gonna do that, and you don't have to, right? Like that's the hard part is like they don't have to. They are well within their rights as a human individual to say,
Mm,
I don't want to do that. I don't want to meet you halfway. I don't want to come to where you are trying to go. And I actually
yeah.
want to, let this end. And
Right.
I've had to do my work around just being okay with, okay, that was an okay choice for somebody else to make for them in their own life.
Ooh, what a good way to put that. I mean, that's I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from all of that, is that a marriage requiring two people requires two people.
Yeah.
You cannot build a marriage by yourself. And so then it's, I've always heard, 50-50. I like 100-100.
Yeah.
I like me doing everything I can. And that does not mean codependence.
Right.
So that's been a big shift for me. And, Michelle, as I've really leaned into codependence, because that for me, it's the more I've researched it and learned about it, it is kind of a chemical imbalance in the brain. Like our brain shifts chemistry by the patterns from the behaviors from the trauma responses. We have to readjust and bring balance to the mental state when we have experienced codependence, especially at that level of like, I am a codependent. It's just like when you're talking about somebody who has clinical narcissism, they're actually missing that piece in their brain that allows for empathy. So they have to practice and learn practical behavioral aspects to learn to exist in an empathetic way. That doesn't mean that their brain is rewired necessarily, but they can at least learn the behaviors of what it means to be an empath.
Absolutely. So you've learned a lot about all of this in your journey. So was that the big catalyst when the marriage ended for you to kind of go on your own
Yeah.
spirit quest or personal growth journey or however you want to characterize it?
Yeah, and yeah, it really, really was. And I think it was the third breaking point. I had the first breaking point when my brother-in-law was killed. I did not go inward. I did not accept that invitation to learn grief. And for a number of reasons, I think it's so easy to assign, we blame everybody else for why we're not going to do the work, even in a positive way. In one sense, my sister was the reason for why I did not heal. And it was because, well, she deserves all the care. It's
Right.
her husband, it's her loss.
Right.
And so, in one sense, I was using her as my scapegoat from doing the work. And then when my husband was thinking about leaving the first time, I asked for us to go to therapy for 2 years, and he wouldn't. I mean, he went once maybe, but like he would not go with me. And so he was my scapegoat for why I was, again, not healing from our marriage and not doing the work. And so finally, when I was like, okay, I need to heal from my brother-in-law, it's been 6.5 years. My sister's doing well. All right, now it's time for me to really look and go inward. And it was only actually as I was learning emotions are good that I realized, oh, I don't actually feel safe having emotions in my marriage.
Yeah.
Emotions are 50% of the human being. That's where the understanding the EQ and the IQ and how much we need both has been so incredibly important. And really, I mean, it's life-changing in so many ways, because now it's like the exploration and the excavation of the inner self. There's a whole world back behind the flesh, And so as we start doing this excavation, we not only get to know ourselves, but we also then get to know others on a much deeper level. And so just like how a marriage requires two people, I was really doing the best I knew how, but I actually, myself, authentic Christene Marie, was not showing up because I didn't know who I was. So he wasn't engaging with an authentic, real person.
Right.
And I don't know how much I was engaging with him authentically. Probably not much. I think whenever we've got emotional unhealth and just a lack of knowledge of self, we are of detriment to everybody, but also ourselves. And so as I really started kind of going through that process, then that's when I was like, okay, something needs to change. I want to be safe emotionally with you. And then that's when everything crumbled. And then it was like, okay, I've seen what happens when I don't allow myself to grieve. It took me 6.5 years to finally start processing the death of Nate, my brother-in-law. And I also when he had his funeral, his cousin, whose sister had died 12 years before, he couldn't come to the funeral because it was so triggering for him. So I've seen myself not heal and what happens there. I've seen somebody else 12 years later. Y'all, we rot inside when we do not deal with the past. And so I was like, screw it. I am going all the way in. I am going, and there's this 3-hour podcast actually that I listened to in between Dr. Jordan Peterson and Lex Friedman. 3 hours. I've listened to it 3 times. So good. Jordan Peterson uses the example, and he uses the Christ story as the allegory for this. It wasn't enough for Christ to simply die. He had to go into the gates of hell to grab hold of the keys of redemption. So we actually need to go through hell to get to the other side for redemption to have its story. It's like the story of the phoenix rising. The phoenix needs to exist in the ashes. The longer they run away from the ashes, the longer it takes for them to rise from it. So there is something about really looking in the mirror and saying, whether it was 50%, 5% that was my involvement, I'm going to take full 100% ownership from my part in it.
Well, the part that I can control is 100% here. Right.
Exactly.
And
yes.
so that's all I can do. So I have to take 100% ownership if I want to heal from this. Man, I resonate so deeply with what you're saying. In my last marriage, which did last 12 years, so I feel like that was a good run.
Good run. Good run. Yeah.
Run. I'm not going to hate on 12 years.
Yes.
Literally 1 month after we got married, like 1 month to the day, is when my dad died.
Wow.
And so I went into horrific grief. And then we got pregnant, which was joy. And then I lost that baby in the second trimester. So that was about 6 months after my dad
died. Oh my God.
So it was horrible. And I was grieving all of that. My husband was grieving too, but in a totally different way. And because we weren't grieving in the same way, it felt very disconnected. And like when I look back, I
Wow.
go, man, our marriage didn't even really have a fair chance because it
Chance.
started on it was just, sometimes
Wow.
you just have a horrible year and like a bunch of stuff happens in a year. And it was just one of those years. It was the year I turned 30 and it was just bam, bam,
Wow.
bam. And I did not have all of the tools and the skills that I have now. Now it's 15
Right.
years later, right? Um,
Mm.
but looking back, I go, yeah, I could blame all this on him or on me or whatever. But like even just circumstantially,
Mm.
that did not
Yes.
really create the best
Yeah.
environment to like start a new
Mm.
marriage in. And
Yeah.
there was a lot there, and it's like when
Mm.
you're married, terrible things do happen to us in our lives over time. Like nobody gets out of here unscarred, unscathed,
Yes. Yes.
and you have to be
Yeah.
able to weather that stuff together. And we know just statistically, a lot of times it will drive people apart just as much as it brings people together because we do grieve in
Yes.
different ways. We do react in different ways. And that can feel really horrible and really isolating when you're wanting somebody to grieve the way you do and they're handling it in a
Yes.
totally different way.
Gosh, well, and I'm glad you brought up the circumstance of things because it is so once, hindsight is 2020. Once we do know better, it's so easy to look back and have our default be judgment
Yeah.
and like truly harshly judging. And man, to be honest, I really actually had to move through, like, I'm really proud of that 20-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Like man, did she love him? Man, did she try? Man, did she do well? She did well for how well she knew,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so now that I know better, now I have a different, it really is this whole element of with the knowledge comes the responsibility. It's like the knowledge and they come together, chicken and egg, right? I don't actually think that it's fair ever to hold somebody responsible for that which they do not know. And so for us even to look back at the past, because a lot of times, here's the thing that's so interesting. A lot of times what we experience today, even loss, I was hosting a knowing retreat and one of the attendees, he was grieving his brother. And his brother had passed away a couple of years ago, but during this retreat, he realized that he was subconsciously blaming his brother and like holding his brother and you abandoned me. But because their childhood was so hard that they actually really needed each other. So when his brother died, it was like, you left. Like, I can't do this alone. But it was because of the past that now didn't actually allow him to fully grieve. Actually, anger was preventing the fullness of access to grief. So it's interesting. So much of what we experience here in the present, even something as like innocent as loss, how much of the past is actually corroding or just coloring our ability to really be in the present moment. And so even with my marriage, I wasn't a full person. Sure, there were things that happened where it felt like that was prevented and like he didn't like who I was. And at the same time, I didn't cultivate that when I was a kid. Like, I was constantly monitoring how much I showed up, how loud I was. And so to then experience that in my marriage, it just reinforced what I already knew. And man, isn't that funny? It's so easy to blame the person when the source, the true source, actually goes much deeper. So attribution is so incredibly important when it comes to this part of knowing, knowing the truth, knowing ourselves, doing the work to ask why. And like, it's like tracing the yellow brick road down to the Genesis story of what was that experience? What happened in the past? And how does that show up in the present?
Absolutely. And I can nerd out about that all day. We've already done that on your show. We'll talk about it in a second.
Yes.
Yes. And what's coming up for me as you talk about that is when we're doing this work, we're still trying to trace to the root. And this is what we do in therapy as well. It's like, what happened that made us feel this way? Oh, it wasn't really my ex-husband. It was my mom who I was replicating in my marriage with my ex or whatever, right? But we're still going back to find something to blame. And then we go into, oh, it was generational trauma or it was this or it was that, it's not even in this lifetime. You can go all kinds of weird ways with this, but we're looking for the root. And when you get to a certain point, you go, oh, it's nobody's fault. None of this is somebody's fault.
Yes.
I keep looking for, either I'm going to beat myself up, I'm going to blame my ex, I'm going to blame my parents, I'm going to blame something that happened 5 generations ago in history, or I'm going to blame how society treats women, or I'm going to find something to be that instead of just going, this was a whole confluence of circumstances that created me, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. So good. Michelle, I'm so grateful that you brought that up. That really kind of completes the picture, right? Because it is going to be, yes, we need to know the root to understand, emotional intelligence. There's two parts to the definition. And the first part has kind of like 3 steps to it. Emotional intelligence is the ability to be aware, understand, and convey one's own emotions.
Mhm.
And then the ability to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. So really it's, okay, let me understand my own inner navigational system and then go and extend empathy and compassion to everybody out there, because you're all doing the best you know how, hopefully. There's very few psychopaths, which is a blessing.
Yes.
And at the same time, like even in my own quest, I think of it as kind of a triad approach. I need to actually hold curiosity, like really genuinely being curious, because that replaces judgment. And then beyond curiosity is gratitude. Really, truly, actually, to your point, man, am I grateful for who I am. Like I really, really, I love who I am. I'm so grateful to know. I'm so grateful that I didn't live another 30 years not knowing who I am. And I'm so grateful I've stopped sleeping through life.
Yeah.
And then the third is love, really actually being like, man, that is the thing that connects all of us, that innate God-given aspect of effectively like the divine in you and me that makes us now connected. So really, if I'm going to hold a grievance against you, that actually is in turn harming me for so many reasons. And we can go down that path if you'd like, but for so many reasons, when we are holding on tightly to the past, it's like holding on to someone's shirt collar and saying, I'm not going to let go until until you pay me what you owe me. But in that process, we're holding ourselves back and tethering ourselves to the past forever. And we're actually unable to move forward. And so to your point about letting go, that book, Letting Go by David Hawkins, has made a profound impact on me. And so the more we're able to let go of, honestly, what he assigns numerical value to emotions. And so, pride is like 150, shame is 20, courage is 200, peace is 600. And so I love that concept, because people talk about higher frequency and I'm like, you can't even define what you mean by that. So I just love this concept of having the numerical values associated with emotions, because I'm like, oh, I get it. And in that process, when we let go of the pride, the shame, the grief, even the anger, we are able to now we're free to rise up. But all of that comes down to the question of, who do I even want to be? So knowing who we are today, that's only part of it. Then it's also, well, who do I want to be tomorrow? So doing the work too, the knowing framework is 3 questions. It's, well, who was I? Really understanding, tracing the yellow brick road down, finding those Genesis moments. And then how is that impacting me today? What are the narratives that I'm holding around myself, the world, and others, God even, that is really coloring the way that I exist and interact? Everything that we do, think, say is going to be autopilot based off of the past, unless we intentionally examine, why am I doing this today? And so the past, who was I? Who am I today? How is the past showing up and coloring everything? And then who do I want to be? Because we get to choose. We get to choose. And that's really taking agency over our lives. So our responsibility is to go inward and then assume agency in the external manifestation of that internal change that we want to see.
Absolutely. And that's maybe what we would refer to as the work, right?
Yes.
Have you done the work? Am I doing the work?
Yes.
And that whole blaming other people thing, not only does it harm you psychologically, physically, to your point, it's also just avoidance. Like, that is how you avoid doing the work, is you go, it's my ex's fault. Like, he was a dick or he was a narcissist, and my partner, who is a complex trauma therapist, one of his big pet peeves is how right now on social media, everybody's a narcissist and
everybody's a narcissist.
He's like,
I know.
Your ex is not a narcissist. Like clinical narcissism is very rare. It is very unlikely that your ex is a narcissist. We've got everybody on social media thinking they
wild
from narcissism. Right?
I know, it's so true. It's dangerous, that assignment, because once you label somebody, now you're no longer curious. Now they cannot change. You've already labeled them. They're already stuck forever and cemented with that label.
And now you've labeled yourself, right? Because now we look in the drama triangle. Now, if my ex is a narcissist and he's a dick and he's the aggressor, then I must be the victim. Right? Now I'm stuck with a label. Now I'm the victim. Now I'm in that kind of drama, because to your point, I'm projecting victim onto everything and everybody in my world, and I'm just manifesting more and more victim shit, right? We've got to
Yeah.
do the work, catch that, and go, where am I putting someone else in a role that's putting me into a role that's actually pigeonholing me and keeping me from
Yes.
growing and expanding and becoming who I am
Mm.
now and who I am meant to be?
So good. That's so powerful. Michelle, I had this picture, I guess you could say, a couple years ago of what forgiveness is, like a visual picture. And it's funny, I don't know if you've seen the stock footage of like the little kid with the red cape flying behind him while he's on the mountaintop and he's like looking off into the distance. But that's kind of like the visual I got of like being the hero of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is taking the other person that you've put at the pinnacle of your mountain and taking your rightful place back.
Yeah.
And therein we take our rightful position because it was inappropriate for us to put them in that place to begin with,
Right.
to give them so much power over us.
Mm-hmm.
Now they actually cannot have a bad day. And God knows we all have bad days.
Right.
But now the stakes are so high because we're so dependent on them, their emotions, their moods, how successful they are. My gosh, that's so much pressure. No person should have that responsibility. And so when we take our rightful place back, we're dethroning them and now we're peers. Now
Yeah.
you're on your mountain, I'm on mine, we're good. And I'm going to take responsibility for me.
I'm going to take
And it changes
responsibility for
everything.
me. And it's
Yeah.
okay if you, in the course of taking responsibility for yourself, did something that hurt me. That's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the fact that you got to make your choices because you're the hero of your life, and your life was not meant to revolve around my life and making me happy and comfortable all the time.
Isn't that a word? How did you, what was your process for really even coming aware of that? Because I think that again, with subconscious narratives, the whole Hollywood Disney love story mantra that we were raised with is very damaging in that
Yeah.
regard. It's
Yeah.
all about the love story, and then it ends with them riding off into the sunset. You don't see real life. So how did you really come to not just be aware of that, oh, he really actually is not supposed to revolve around me, nor me around him.
Right.
And it's okay. Like, and then how do you even live that out?
It's almost like you have to, because you get to that point, and I always say my favorite clients are the people, or the prospective clients are people who are sick of their own shit, right? They come to me and they're just like, I'm stuck in a loop and like help, and I'm like,
I
yes,
am done with this.
yes,
Yeah.
you are right at the point you need to be to actually do something about it. I got sick of my own shit. There was a point where I was like, I am looping. I'm
Yeah.
looping, I'm ruminating, I'm giving people speeches in the shower. I'm like, like I'm not moving through this.
Yeah.
I'm talking to my friends and my family about it in ways that are making it awkward for them. Like, I'm not doing what I want to do and what I need to do to move through this. What's happening? Studying the drama triangle has been very helpful for me. And I'll give a shout out to our friend Kylie Ryan and her heart alchemy method, where she goes deep into the drama triangle. But studying with her and looking at that and going, where am I putting myself in victim? Because as soon as you put someone else in aggressor, you put yourself in victim. If you put yourself in rescuer, you put them in victim. And it's like all these ways that we pigeonhole other people and ourselves. And that's how we get stuck in the drama. So now I've learned to reverse engineer that. If I'm stuck in loop, my brain goes, oh, okay, wait a second. This is drama. This thing I'm experiencing right now, this looping, this rumination, that's drama. Okay, so if it's drama, where am I on the triangle? Where am I putting them on the triangle?
Love
Because
that.
if it's a drama, it means we're on the triangle, right? Just one framework of many, 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 right? That we could go into. But that's a good one now for me to catch and for me to loop. The other thing that I started doing really the last couple of years was tons of shadow work. And I'll just give like my producer's always like, you got to explain what you're talking about. Shadow work is when we look at the ways that we're the asshole. Basically, shadow work is the understanding that there's nothing that we can see or experience in our lives that is not within us. Because if it weren't in us, we wouldn't be able to see it in somebody else. So if I say to somebody like that, Christine is a liar. I'm not a liar. Christine's a liar. The only reason that I could see liar is because I too am a liar, right? The only way I can see somebody's being a jerk or somebody's being, mean or whatever is because I too have those things in me. And so when I would look at something that I didn't think was a fair behavior or a way felt like I was being mistreated, it goes back to, well, have I ever done that? Have I ever felt that way? Have I ever been that to somebody else? Could somebody else in my life ever say, oh, Michelle treated me this way? Shadow, because that must exist. the only way for me to be able to see it or to even experience it is if it exists within myself. So again, taking
Yeah.
100% responsibility for the only thing I control right here.
Yeah.
Where am I
Yeah.
a liar? Where am I a jerk? Where did I drop the ball? Where could I have done better or taken more responsibility? And then we get into, there's a book called Existential Kink. If you guys haven't read that, that's fantastic. But it's like admitting to yourself where you enjoy that.
Mm.
Where are you getting off on that behavior? And she's using the kink frame, which is, hilarious and kind of makes it accessible. But the point still stands where it's like, okay, when I was frustrated with somebody else, then I would turn it into, oh, feeling superior feels good, doesn't it? Oh, you like that, don't you? And it would make me laugh. So that's what I'm
Yes.
putting myself above somebody and saying they should do this. I know better than them, what they should be doing, whatever. And I'm enjoying the feeling of superiority that gives me.
Mm.
And let me just, if I'm going to enjoy it, then let me just acknowledge it and let me actually like fully enjoy it and be like, oh, I love feeling superior. And you know what? That dissolves it so fast. It's amazing.
And then you realize, oh, it's actually not all that it's cracked up to be to feel superior. Actually, it's isolating. It is lonely, and all
And it's
those
okay for it
things.
to feel good for a minute because you know what? We're so good at we talk about, oh, we're avoiding anger, we're avoiding sadness, we hurt
Mm.
ourselves in all these ways. We also avoid the icky feelings, I'll call them. It's
Yeah.
icky for me to admit that I enjoy feeling superior sometimes, but I need to feel into that feeling just as hard as I need to feel into anger, sadness, loneliness, boredom,
Mm-hmm.
guilt, shame, anything else to process it. I
Mm.
need to be okay with the fact that it feels good for a hot
Mm.
second before I go, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that way because there's that should make shame. I shouldn't be feeling that way. I need to push it away. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just feel your feeling. Feelings are okay. Like you said, they're 50% of us. They're
Mm-hmm.
neutral. It's okay to
Mm.
feel it and then go, okay, I felt it. I let it move through. It doesn't have to stay here. It doesn't have to dictate my behavior. It doesn't have to like script out the rest of my life because I felt it and I let
So
it come
good.
up. That's all right.
Yeah. And I just to add to that, I heard this analogy about emotions being like a tunnel and you have to move through them lest you suppress it and it stays inside.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to let go, it's actually moving through to then move up to get to those higher emotional levels. And so if we don't let ourselves feel that superior aspect, it's just suppressing and it's going to remain. So in the moving through, and then to your point of emotions being neutral, which I love, you haven't taken action. The action is the part that we need to be careful about. It's the behavior,
Right.
but the feeling itself. And so to your point about shame, man, shame keeps us so trapped. They keep it so locked from being able to progress forward. And I even wonder, in order to really forgive, I think that we actually need to let go of shame in so many ways because so much of what we're forgiving other people for had to do with our own behavior in that moment.
Yep.
And so if we haven't allowed for ourselves to feel how we behaved and recognize, oh man, I actually did act in a way that I wish I hadn't, or numerous of other things, so much of what prevents us to actually grieve, to actually heal, to really be able to move through anger is because we feel shame over our own selves. And so when we can become familiar with the voice of shame and just recognize the voice, to your point, I love that framework. And even the drama, like, oh, this is drama. There's so many paths we could go down. But to kind of wrap this up, being familiar with the voice of shame, being familiar with the drama triangle or what is it? The trauma triangle.
The
And then,
drama triangle. Yeah.
yeah. Man, it's so helpful to have these little frameworks because they really do give us an understanding. That's where be aware. Okay, I'm feeling this way. Understanding these frameworks really help bring an understanding to, oh, that's what shame is. Oh, that's anger. Oh, that's superiority. I need to move through that. And that's okay. And it's neutral. And then we get to convey our emotions and be like, you know what? I didn't even know that was happening inside me. That happened. I just moved through it. Can we talk about this? Because I'd actually love to protect from that happening again.
Well,
So
right. That's
I
where the
just love that
pause
framework.
comes in. And that's where we get to say, okay, I'm not going to react from my emotion. I'm going to allow myself to feel my emotion. I'm going to sit with my emotion. I'm going to take a pause.
Yes.
And then once I'm processed on it or once it's handled, then I can decide what I want to do. And so, kind of to your point, look, yeah, I look back and I say, there are things that I wish I hadn't done that I could have done differently, that I could have done better. And there's the and there. And I'm proud of her. She was doing the best that she could. I can
Yeah.
look back and I can honestly say, like, if I were staring in the eyes of God after
Mm,
the pearly gates, I could say, I did my best with what I
yeah.
had every moment of my life. I absolutely did.
Mm,
Now, did I
I
have what I have
love
now?
that.
No. But I did my
Right.
best. Some of the forgiveness that we need to do is that forgiveness of ourselves.
Of ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I
good. And
wanna
can we
talk
even,
about your career now. I know we only have a few minutes. I know you gotta go, but
yes.
you are thriving and you have a book coming
Woo!
out, you've got programs, and you're live streaming, which is bringing up my baggage because that scares the shit out of me. Not from a being on camera standpoint, but because when you and I did, I live stream with
Yeah.
you.
Live stream.
I live streamed with you, and you
That's so
said to
good.
me, rightfully so, at the very beginning, don't look at the comments. I'm going to hide the comments from you while we're live streaming because they're very distracting. And then when we were
Yeah.
done, I was like, okay, now that we're done, can I see the comments? And I saw the comments and I was like, oh my God, that would have been so distracting. I was so glad you did that.
So
So I am in
distracting.
awe of the fact that you are live streaming while looking at all those comments, half of which are just dudes being telling you how hot you are or whatever.
Or saying, I have vampire teeth. Dude,
Yeah.
Michelle, it is
Or how hot
weird.
you're not, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. It's, yeah. Or just very cruel. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
So how did you
It's
get past
a lot.
the all the feelings that that brings up when people are saying you're sexy, you're not sexy, whatever, and you're like, I'm trying to talk about trauma and healing. This is not even
Yeah.
about whether I'm sexy or not. And that's the whole chat is
Yeah.
just going off. Like, how are you dealing with your feelings in the
Yes.
moment?
Well, I will say one, I do have the ability to disable the chat, but I've chosen not to because in all of those are sandwiched these incredible conversations, authentic questions, really vulnerable comments. Like, man, we get really real. The first real time that I was like, oh, we've got a real show was this guy said, my girlfriend of 20 years committed suicide
Mm,
and I haven't processed it.
mm,
And we all just like rallied. And then another moment was this kid said, my name's Sammy. And 2 years ago on this date, I had an accident that now I'm a quadriplegic and I am just so devastated. And that's actually like, if I could think of anything worse, it would be being a quadriplegic. Like, I just can't think of anything more awful. And so we just have really created a community. And at the same time, it's been, to get to that point even, and then even more so, the trolls are coming out of the woodwork. I cannot let the positive compliments, even the encouragement of like, oh, this is really, you're speaking about such good content. I love what you're saying. You're beautiful. I can't let any of that actually impact me, or else I'm going to inevitably let the negative impact me.
that's right.
I'm not doing this for the accolades or to, if I was to let the accolades get to me, it's like we really can't choose. If people are externally are going to have weight over us, they're going to have weight over us in both regards, the positive and the negative. So anytime my value, my mission, my why is tied up to the external, it's going to be influenced in every which way. And so really, even I've been getting people asking me, why are you talking about this when you're not a therapist? And, I'm actually working on like really preparing. I've answered it well each time, but I'm like, man, I'm going to be asked this probably for the rest of my life because knowing who you are is the thing that I just feel so called to. There's so much brokenness.
Yeah.
There's so much brokenness in families, in individuals, in this world. And we don't know how to do relationships. We don't know how to do healing. We don't know how to recover. We don't even know how to breathe. Like, kids aren't being taught how to breathe. That helps them when they're screaming, things like that, just like the little things. And so this really does feel like my mission. But yeah, there have been 3 times that it has gotten to me. And each time was when I was actually not in alignment, where I hadn't taken the time that morning. So my morning sets me up for the rest of the day. And when I get aligned, when I bring my behaviors, my beliefs, my soul, my spirit, myself, everything into alignment under the hierarchy of the ideal of who do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
What are my values? What are the goals and the mission and my targets that I'm replacing the past with for this? Who do I want to be? And then for me, I actually bring all of that into subservience under who does God say I am? Because that voice is louder than my husband's. My husband saying, honestly, like saying I don't love you after me like killing myself, like so much of our worth is tethered to our partner, and
Mhm.
do they love us? Are we worthy for them? And when they say that you're not, okay, so it's just what, my voice against yours. But for me, I'm like, no, there's actually a superordinate principle that comes
Right.
in and says that I'm loved. And so I get to trust and rest in that voice. So for me, that's alignment every single day. Is I've got to take the time to get myself in right order, and then I can move out throughout the day. But Michelle, it's wild. The times where it has gotten to me, it's either touched an old wound or I haven't gotten myself aligned. So it's always a mirror, to your point. It's a mirror. Everything is a mirror for us and how we're doing.
It's all a mirror. It's all, Christene, I could talk to you for hours and have and will. And
Yay.
I want to be so respectful of your time. Please tell everybody if they want to find you online or learn more about your work, where can
Yeah.
they go?
Well, if people are up for just a gift, I have verticalalignment.com, where there's 21 days of free vertical alignments. You just put in your email, and then every morning I send you a vertical alignment. That I'll create prompts and really specifically write them for people when I do retreats. So I'll like tailor and personalize them based on conversations. But generically, the align process, ALIGN. A is awaken. Awaken just at your physical body, like actually getting in touch with our physical body, because that's how we come to know our emotions. So often our emotions show up as sensations in our body of like a tight stomach, or our throat is closing up, or our chest is tightening. And so that's awaken the physical body, awaken the self. And then L is listen to the emotions. What do the emotions have to say to you from the previous day or many years before? And then I is illuminate. What's that greater superordinate truth about this situation, about you, about this circumstance? G is grow. Where do I actually really need to look in the mirror and change and really listen to what other people have said? This is where kind of the horizontal. So we talk about getting vertically aligned. This is now where the horizontal comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, how am I doing in relationship? Because relationships can be a greater mirror than most anything, which is so annoying, because we can think we're great vertically in isolation, and then we go and engage with the world and we're like, dang it. I thought I was so much better. And then N is navigate. How do I ensure that my compass is navigating more throughout the day?
Beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Yeah.
So verticalalignment.com. And then where can they follow you on social media? Because
well, they can follow me on YouTube, Christene Marie _knowing. And it's Christine with an E-N-E. My parents did not name me Christine. They named me Christine.
So all of that will be in the show notes for you guys if you want to see it. As always, you can follow me at Michelle Descale. If you want to DM me, it's really me in my DMs because I'm not famous yet. So get in there while you can. And come join us in the Delusional Movement Facebook group. We are almost to 200 right now. So get in.
Let's go.
Yeah. So get in there. The energy in there is really cool. We would love to see you. And the link will be in the show notes as well for that. Christene Marie, thank you so much for joining us on Delusional today. It's been awesome having you on the show.
Michelle, you're incredible. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. I love this movement. I love the podcast topic. So it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And everybody, we'll see you next time.